Go, Andy. Go, Andy. Go, Andy. Go, Andy. Go, go. Yay! What's up, y'all? Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing good. Thank you so much for taking time to check out this video of mine. I really do appreciate it. I've appreciated the support that I've got on a lot of my recent videos. Thank you. I really do appreciate you guys. Dune Part 2. I'm still buzzing after seeing this movie twice, and I do want to see it again. I want to see it a third time. I also recently watched the Dune miniseries, the Sci-Fi miniseries. Now I've seen all 3 live adaptations of Dune. I don't consider myself a Dune expert when it comes to analysis or breakdowns. I think there are some really, really great creators on YouTube. Quinn's Ideas especially. I think he's probably one of the best, if not the best, when it comes to Dune and breaking down Dune. I still want to give my thoughts on these 3 series, a character analysis of the 3 series, some of the differences, what I saw in these 3 different. I wanted to give my opinion on these 3 adaptations. Some character breakdowns and just some differences that I personally saw. Give you some thoughts and ideas of things that I saw in these 3 adaptations. I want to start by saying, I actually don't think this is as controversial as some people may see it. I believe that the Sci-Fi Dune miniseries is the best adaptation between the 3. I think all 3 are great for their own reasons. Yes, even the 1984 movie, I personally enjoy it. I actually really enjoy a lot of the risk and a lot of the things that David Lynch did in his version of Dune. But I think when it comes to the ideas, the characters, the message of Dune, I think the 2000 miniseries is the best adaptation when it comes to that. It may not be the best when it comes to quality to some people. The 1984 may be a little bit better quality. The 2024, 2021 may be a lot better. The 2021 and 2024 are the best film versions, but this is the best adaptation version, the miniseries. There's a lot of things that they do that I think really works. And I think there's certain things that are done in the miniseries that is better than the 1984 and the 2021 and 2024 movies. And I think some of the things that the characters do come across as better as well. I want to start with Paul because he is the main character and give some ideas as far as the difference between the 3. Let me start off by saying I think Timothée Chalamet, however you pronounce his name, I think he actually gave the best performance when it comes to Paul. I think these 2 actors, it was a bit hammed up in some degrees. I think they still did a great job, especially this guy. I think they both actually did a great job portraying Paul. Timothée, however you pronounce his name, he had the best performance when it came to acting. The emotions that he was able to display, the danger of what Paul is and what Paul is becoming that he was able to display. This guy, and I believe his name is Alex Newman, I think, maybe misremembering that, but I think this guy did the best performance as far as portraying the danger of what Paul is. In the 2021 and 2024 version, Paul was menacing and Paul was, it's funny because I think Timothée, again, however you pronounce his name, is younger than these 2 actors were when they portrayed Paul, but he was more menacing. And I think the other thing that's interesting is I think that the newer version was a lot more grounded, while these 2 versions lean more into the fantastical, the sci-fi of it. Especially the 1984 version. They really lean into the fantastical sci-fi aspects of Dune. Not to say that this one didn't, but I think it was a bit more grounded as well. I think that the middle one from the 2000 miniseries, I think he gave us a better idea of how truly dangerous Paul was, not only to Fremen society, but the universe in general. In the 1984 version, Paul was a hero. He was a hero. At the end of the day, he was a hero to the Fremen, he was a hero to the universe. These 2 came off as the charismatic leaders, the dangerous messiah that you may not want to truly follow. The difference is this Paul was way more menacing. This Paul and the things that occurred, what you saw, it showed you the danger. With this Paul, I think you saw how dangerous the Fremen were, how dangerous he was, and some of the things that the Fremen were doing, the way that they fought. Even though the fighting in the miniseries didn't look as good as the fighting in the 2021-2024 version, you saw the dangers of what could happen as Paul became the Lisan al-Gaib, the Muad'Dib, the Kwisatz Haderach. There was a particular scene in the miniseries when the Fremen and the Harkonnens and the Sardaukar are fighting. You see what Paul is bringing to the universe, what his jihad will spread across the universe. That's why I think that this middle one, the 2000 miniseries, is the better adaptation of what Frank Herbert was trying to convey. These two are still good, but this one in the middle, it really showed what Frank Herbert was trying to display. This Paul was menacing and dangerous. You felt the danger of him becoming the Kwisatz Haderach and what he was capable of because of that speech that he gave in the Southern Hemisphere. But this Paul, you felt the danger of what was going to happen to the universe in this miniseries. Lady Jessica. 2024, especially Lady Jessica, was something else. You feel more of a motherly, a woman who is sticking by the men in her lives. You feel a bit more of that in these two. You feel a bit more of masterminding, finding the Messiah, finding the one in this Lady Jessica. This Lady Jessica is the best version of Jessica. She more so conveys one, that she loved Leto and who he was. She seemed to love Paul for who he was more, versus this one, who you didn't really get that from her. You didn't really get that sympathy, that empathy, or that love that these two had for Paul and Leto. Lady Jessica in the 2024-2021 movies love Paul and love Leto, but you didn't see it. You get a better idea of this one as the more traditional Bene Gesserit. She is adept in fighting to a degree. This one is more adept in conniving and cunning, using the power of the voice and the power of words. She's still tough. She still can get done what needs to get done. She was a manipulator and a conniver. And I feel like she comes off as more as the villain in the 2021, especially 2024 version, while these two come off more as motherly figures in Paul's life. Chani is another one. Denis Villeneuve takes a big risk with Chani in Dune Part 2, whereas these two, the one from the 1984 movie and the one from the 2000 miniseries, are more in line of the Chani in the book. This one is more of a freedom fighter, a fighter for her people, and someone who is more of an equal to Paul. These two, I believe, are still equal to Paul. They come across more as the concubines, where this one comes off as the warrior who's fighting next to Paul. I thought that dynamic was interesting. This one in the middle is very much closer, I believe, to the version in the book. I think all three did a great job. I think Zendaya was phenomenal. These two were good as well, especially this one in the middle. I like all three. I want to lean more towards Zendaya's because it can kind of give us a new outlook in the next few movies, and it can take the series into an interesting direction. What direction that is, it can go back towards the direction of the books and previous adaptations, but I think it'd be interesting to see where Denis Villeneuve goes with this new direction and these new developments in Dune. Princess Irulan, she wasn't really as visible in the 1984 version. In these two versions, in the 2024 and the 2000 miniseries, she's a lot more visible, especially in this one. She comes across more as a person involved in the entire situation, whereas in this one, she comes across as a person involved towards the end of the situation. You see her show up to the dinner party. She has a conversation with Paul on Arrakis in the 2000 miniseries. It creates more of a connection to Paul, which you see play out in, I think it's 2003, Children of Dune miniseries. I started watching that. I haven't finished yet, but I started watching that, where you see that connection and you see some of the dynamics play out because of things that happened in the first miniseries. I actually like the one from the 2000 miniseries better than the other two. And it's also interesting because she is somewhat of the narrator in all three movies. Well, not all three, but she's a narrator in the 1984 movie. She's somewhat of the narrator in the 2000 miniseries. and she's the narrator in the 2024 Dune Part 2 movie. Just like Chani, I'm interested to see if there's changes in her character development, because there were slight changes. I'm interested to see if there's changes in her character development. I'm pretty sure he's going to get the third movie. In the third movie, when Denis Villeneuve does do it. Stilgar. Really, I think one of the biggest differences between these three, because I think he aligns himself as Paul's right-hand guy, his second in command, a voice of reason among the Fremen for Paul. The biggest difference between these three is that these first two, the 1984 and the 2000 version, were just that. They were Paul's right-hand man. They believed in who he was. They believed in what he could be. In Dune Part 2, it's set up a little bit in Dune Part 1. Stilgar is a fanatic. He is a believer in the Lisan al-Gaib, the Mahdi. He is a believer in the Kwisatz Haderach and the Messiah. He comes across as a fanatic. He is the epitome of what Frank Herbert was trying to warn us about, of following somebody through blind faith. And he followed Paul through blind faith. That line, it was in the trailer, but it sticks out a lot, is, I don't care what you believe, I believe. That is Stilgar's blind faith coming out in this movie. And I think it was done well. This is the best version of Stilgar, to me personally. This is the best version of Stilgar in the live adaptations. We didn't get to see Jamis' scene in the 1984 movie. It was a deleted scene, but we did get to see it in the 2000 miniseries and in Dune Part 1. I like this Jamis a lot because I feel like he's more of a connection, more of a fulcrum for Paul into the Fremen way of life. He is basically the tuning fork that initiates Paul into the Fremen way of life with Paul's visions, even though Chani is somewhat of that beforehand, and attaching that line, the mystery of life, which is in the book, it's later on in the book, but attaching that line to Jamis was so powerful to me. It elevated that line to me a lot. And I really just love that line. I think it's interesting how they cut out Paul becoming a stand-in for Jamis's, I think they would consider it wife or woman, and that might have just been too much to put into any of the adaptations. It would have been an interesting dynamic to have in there, because then he would have also had basically surrogate children that he would have to care for. Even though he never loved that woman, it would have been an interesting dynamic, especially in the 2021 and 2024 movie, if they had included her in the movie. The Duncan Idaho that we get in all three adaptations is good to me. I do think that Jason Momoa's Duncan Idaho comes across as the true swordsmaster. He is the one who you would think, all right, this is the most dangerous swordmaster in the universe, one of the most dangerous. This is the guy that can take on 20 Sardaukar by himself and take them out. He was that guy. He was that dude. Just the things that he did. It's hard because these movies didn't have the budget of this movie, and you see certain things and you're like, these are old movies, they didn't have the budget, they didn't have the effects. This Duncan Idaho was that guy. You feel sad for all three versions of Dr. Yue. I feel the saddest for this one. I feel sad for all three of them. They betrayed the Atreides family for a hope, a wish. Something that they probably knew they weren't even going to get, but it was the potential to have it. It was tragic, just tragic all around. I do wish that all three movies, this one did though, I do wish they had leaned more into the dynamic of them believing that Lady Jessica was the traitor. Because they do in this movie. They don't really in these two movies. And somewhat, I think they leaned into it a little bit in the 1984 movie. They definitely didn't lean into it in this one. I think it would have made the 2021-2024 version a lot more interesting if they had leaned into the idea. The idea of Lady Jessica being the traitor ties into Gurney Halleck. This Gurney Halleck did believe that Lady Jessica was a traitor, and there's a scene where he confronts her about it. It would have been so interesting if they had made that a dynamic in the 2024 2021 movie. Maybe you don't see the turn of Lady Jessica as much in the Dune Part 1 and Dune Part 2 if they make that a dynamic. Her turn was a little bit crazy. So if they make that a dynamic, it might be too much. It might be pushing it too far. The idea of her being a villain, it's very subtle in the newer movies. If they had done that, that would have been something. I like all three versions of Gurney Halleck in all three live adaptations. the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen. These two versions are hammed up to me. This version, Stellan Skarsgård version, is more grounded, just like Paul. I feel like in the new movies, it's more grounded. He's kind of more, the conniving is a bit more straight to the point, while these two, especially this one gives Shakespearean, theatrical, theater, stage play level conniving. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. This one, he was great. Hammed up a lot, but I do think that he was great. This one was great too. This one was menacing. Menacing, and the conniving, again, it felt more like straight shot. It wasn't plans within plans within plans. It was more so like, this is the plan, this is the way we execute it, and this is what we do. These two were conniving. Fade Ratha. Lovely Fade. Austin Butler took a turn. He took some risks. He made Fade his fade, and this fade was out of control. Definitely way more psychotic and out there than these two. I will say, I actually think that the fight between Fade and Paul was best in the 2000 miniseries adaptation. This was a good fight. The 1984 was actually a good fight as well. This was a really good fight. This fight was the best to me. It showed what Paul had become because he used his prescience and he used some of his skills as the Kwisatz Haderach to take this Fade down. While in this fight, you get those visions, and that's another thing. I think that Paul's visions were more it's weird. They were more grounded. To me, they didn't exactly feel like Paul was seeing the future. While in these two, you felt like Paul was seeing the future, especially in the 1984 version because of that inner monologue stuff. I think that this is the best version of Fade. This Fade had the best fight to me personally. It didn't have the sleekness, it didn't have the big budgetness. It looked like a miniseries, a TV show fight, but this was a really good fight to me. There was more flips, it was more fantastic in Sci-Fi. This was like the fight at the end of Rocky, what was it? Rocky 5 when he fought Tommy Morrison. That's what this felt like. This more so felt like a fight that belonged in a Sci-Fi movie. I liked all three. Best version of Fade, best fight that Fade had. The worms. I don't know which worms I like more. I might go with the 2000 miniseries version of the worms. I think that they feel more like alien creatures in this version than they do in these other two versions. But all three had really good versions of the sandworms. I'm just not sure which one I like more just yet. What do you guys think as far as the sandworms? Which adaptation had the best version of the sandworms? I'm adding these three characters in after the fact, but I think it is important that they are mentioned because of the roles that they play in all three adaptations of the Dune series. The first character is the Emperor. It's an interesting mix of the characters. The one thing that I will say about Christopher Walken in Dune Part 2 is I feel like his character is straightforward. The scheme is the scheme, the plan is the plan, and that's it. It's kind of just straightforward. The other two are a bit more whimsical and theatrical with the way in which their schemes play out. They play a bigger role, especially in the Dune miniseries. The Emperor plays a bigger role in the scheme in which he is playing. You see more visibility of him planning the schemes within the schemes. Even in the 1984 movie, the Emperor is the one who goes over basically the entire plan to rid the Spacing Guild, the Landsrat, and the Imperium of House Atreides. It's interesting the different dynamics between the Emperor. I'm gonna have to say, the Emperor from the miniseries, the best version of the Emperor. Maybe because we just don't see as much of the Emperor in Dune Part 2 or Dune Part 1. That's why I think the miniseries is the best at this point. The next character is Alia, and we can just straight up say it, while her presence is strong in Dune Part 2, her role is a bit minimized because you don't actually see her. You hear her voice a few times, but we don't actually see the Alia that we were expecting to see. In Dune 1984, they took an interesting choice with Alia. I would say it fits the science fiction version a bit more. It's a bit more out there because of the voice that they give her. And then there's like this really random scene where she's dancing. I think it's, if I remember correctly, in the 1984 movie, I think it's raining or there's blood or something, and she's dancing. And it was really random and really weird. The Alia in the Dune miniseries, comes across as a child gifted with knowledge of things that she's not supposed to have knowledge of, but she still comes across as a child. This is a tough one for me. I can't say which one is better. I think the choices they made for Dune Part 2 are interesting and it makes sense. It gives Alia a bit of control and it kind of elevates her as a preborn to a degree. She is basically a puppeteer of Lady Jessica. Lady Jessica still has her own thoughts in her own mind, but Alia is somewhat of a puppet master. I like Alia in the Dune miniseries because she does come across as a child, and I even like Alia in the Dune 1984 version because it was just so out there. It just felt so crazy. Very interesting choice for what they did. And then there's Reverend Mother Helem Gaius Mohim. In the Dune 1984 and the Dune miniseries, just like the Emperor, just like so many other characters, these two are very theatrical. They come across as very hammed up, very out there, especially the one from the Dune miniseries. The one from the 1984 version, she's a bit out there because of the way that she looks and the way that she acts. The acting is a bit over the top. She's got the bald head. She's got the gold teeth. It's really out there. The one in the miniseries, like so many actors in that, come across as very stage play, very Shakespearean. I think they're good. The one in Dune Part 1 and Part 2, the 2021-2024 version, is very grounded. Like so much of the newer movie is very grounded. She is a bit more menacing. She comes across as one of the grand schemers. Everything is aligning to her will. Everything is playing to the game that she is playing. And she's one step ahead of so many different people. I like all three versions of this Reverend Mother. I think that everybody did a great job in their interpretation and their adaptation of her character. And I think it just works. In closing, I really liked all three of these live adaptations. I do still believe that this is the best adaptation of the three. This is the best movie of the three. This is the one that takes the most risks. And I still like all three. Like I said, I thought the inner monologue and some of the things that they do is really interesting with the 1984 version. And I think Paul comes across as more of a hero in the 1984 version. And maybe that's why it was panned the way that it was. People didn't really like it. Also like the weirding way the sound modules in this version. I thought that was something cool. One thing that I thought was really cool, especially in Dune Part 2, was Getty Prime. And seeing that planet, the black sun, and the way that their fireworks work. I may have said this in a previous video, but the way that their fireworks worked were so cool to me. It was so simple, but it was so cool to me. Dune miniseries, 2000 Dune miniseries, to me, is the best adaptation, and I think they do so many things so well, even though they didn't have the budget that this one had. They didn't have a lot of the VFX technology that this one had, but they still did a lot great. I'm watching Children of Dune, and it's really good so far. I'm interested to see what they do with Dune Messiah. What I would do if I were them is I would actually lean more into Children of Dune than Dune Messiah. I know it's hard, and people may not like it, but maybe just do cliff notes on Dune Messiah to get into Children of Dune. It may not work for everybody, but that's just kind of what I see. Who knows? Who knows what's going to work best? Thank you so much for taking time to check out this video. Have you seen all three live adaptations of Dune? If so, which one is your favorite? Which one do you think captures and gives Frank Herbert's message the best? I'm sticking with my choice, but what do you think? I really do appreciate you taking your time to watch this video. Thank you so much. Please feel free to like it, to share it, to comment, subscribe. I really appreciate any kind of support that you're willing to give me. Thank you so much. Continue to have a great day. Continue to be blessed. Have a good one.